flowers on stage.
So like my first thought when I get there is like, oh well, I'll feel really, it'll be challenging, but I'll feel comfortable. And that just simply wasn't true. I didn't feel comfortable when I got there. There were a ton of mandolin players there, and all of them were better than me. You know what I mean? And like that was great. That was exactly what I needed. But it was just it made me realize I'm like, holy cow, like some people are getting into this game here at Berkeley and they are already, 10 miles ahead of me starting the race. You know what I mean? So I had a little bit of a moment where I'm like, man, I really got to dial in here and figure out what I need to change and how to get better. Now, that's a good thing, I think, but I think there's a point, and a lot of people can relate to this, I'm sure, when they go to Berkeley, is like, and I've talked to some people who went kind of experienced the same thing. It's like you almost get to a point where you get too obsessive about that and you forget that, what the purpose of music is. I mean, in the end, what's the purpose of music? What's the point of playing live music for people? For me, it's, just to have a good time. If you're not having a good time, then you kind of already messed up the first step. You know what I mean? Um, but anytime you take something like music, which is so interpretive and different for each person, and you try to make it academic, you know what I mean? You got to set some sort of rules. You got to set something to where people can, you know, be able to understand and progress. Um, and part of that is kind of breaking you down and building you up. So, I don't know. I think when you get out of Berkeley, you start realizing that some of it is a little bit silly, but you're thankful for all of it. You know what I mean? Um, I loved it, but I think I, I think I was very glad to be out of there, be done with it, close that chapter. You know what I mean?
Sounds like a pressure cooker for sure.
Yeah, yeah. It was half and half for sure.
So, zooming out, kind of jumping to the side, I'd love to hear you talk about just some things in general you think are maybe misunderstood or even overlooked by other musicians early on in their journey, artists in general, just like early on.
Man, I think the one misconception that a lot of people has have is you got to know everything in order to be good. You know what I mean? That you got to have every musical situation. You got to be able to know what you're doing. And there are people like that. And you know, there are a few people that are able to do that. And I speak highly of a situation like that. But at the same time, it's like, you know, you're there to find what you're good at and play with the people you want to play with and focus in on the things that you want to do. And, you know, I think it's a misconception right off the bat. They call it imposter syndrome, the feeling that you're not worthy enough and that you haven't done enough. Um, Progression should, outside of an academic standpoint, should become natural. You know what I mean? Just from I mean, until school, basically progression on an instrument was just from jamming, like just having fun. You know what I mean? Just
Right.
doing stuff that we do on our off time because it was fun, you know? So, yeah, like you said, a pressure cooker, it can be very easily driven to something that's like, oh, you gotta be the best. You gotta suck the fun out of it, you know?
So with where you're at now, like what does growth and improvement look like for you today?
Well, I think for me, it's just having a good balance and remembering what I like to play, especially with the band, remembering what we like to do and just having fun with it, enjoying our times out on the road when we can, and taking all the knowledge that you learn from school and turn it into something that you want to make of it, and it is interesting. Like once you get out of somewhere like that, you start to feel that a lot of those things that you learned are kind of subconsciously coming up and helping you out, helping you have more of a fun time, helping you create more stuff that you didn't know you could create, and that's cool. Um, but having balance is something I definitely have worked on more, focusing on other hobbies sometimes, coming back to it to kind of like get my creativity back up.
Mhm.
Um, Having a steady day that involves maybe playing a little bit, maybe doing another hobby, maybe, getting exercise, whatever, just to it's like a constant kind of trick to make yourself be like, oh yeah, that's right. I'm gonna come back to music and this is gonna be like I'm gonna come up with different stuff now. It's gonna be cooler.
Mhm. With your creative practice, is there something that comes to mind that you like don't do that you avoid that you think is beneficial?
Maybe we don't try and make this song completely structured and we try to like do it or just see what happens when we play it live. And I think we could do more of that, but like I said, it's we don't because it's uncertain. And
Mhm.
especially on like a big show, it's kind of tough to be like, yeah, we'll kind of just see how this one goes.
So, in a world where it's like judged by streams and Instagram followers and all that, and it feels like a rat race almost.
Hmm.
How do you all define success on a day-to-day basis for yourselves?
From like the views and the likes and all that stuff, um, it's not the end all be all, but I mean, man, we're all young, you know what I mean? We grew up in that culture, like having a lot of likes and responses and things like that directly engage with how many people are going to be at our shows and things like that. So yeah, that stuff is really important to us, and we really try to hone in on the social media game. Um, but at the end of the day, the kind of reward to us is people that come to our shows and maybe talk about those Instagram likes. A viewer says that they caught our show because they saw an advertisement come on their phone and they watched the video and they're like, "Man, I just came out. I invited a couple friends and I came out." And that's like, yeah, like it worked. Like we got them. And that's great. It's super cool. Um it's great to see different situations where people have never heard our music or maybe they have been to a million shows, all of that. Just people coming up and saying what their story or how they've involved themselves with what we're doing. Because in the end, I think when you're like working in a live band industry, that's kind of your goal, right? You want people to come to your shows and just have a good time. I mean, I think if you go to a gig and you play terribly and you get into the mic and you ask everybody if they had a good time and they go, yeah, you're like, cool, great.
Hell
I
yeah.
think we did what we need to do here.
Hell yeah. Talk to me about what you would say are like the ideal traits for who you think would be like the ideal leader of a group.
Hmm. Well, not me. But I think in a group, man, I think an ideal leader in a group is someone that recognizes all sorts of things, all sorts of ideas, um, but understands where things need to go. You know what I mean? But at the end of the day, when you have a group, and I can only speak from the experiences I know, but like, when we work in a group, we all really try hard to contribute equal ideas and contribute, ask each other opinions and respect a certain idea that maybe you don't agree with, but you're going to go with. And, um, you know, I think it can get really slippery when everything is decided by someone, you know what I mean, or something. Um, I think it's so important, and it keeps everybody having a piece of the pie, you know what I mean? Having something to feel proud of. And, you know, in a band we want everybody to feel proud and feel recognized for their hard work. So I would say ideal leader is someone that can really reach out and understand that we're all in this, you know what I mean?
Mhm. I'd love to hear your thoughts on like what you think it is about physically about music that can cause for that like profound live experience where it's like life changing in 3 hours feels like it went by in 3 minutes.
Hmm. Well, like I said, this is only from my personal experience, right? Because that's kind of all I have. But I would say for me, if I'm in a crowd and I'm watching a show, um, and you know, I get back from the show and I go to bed or whatever. I think the ideal show, the thing that like really makes waves is when you like wake up and you like want to like relive that show in your head and like thinking about where you were the night before and like how cool it was and that certain song it like just caught your ear or whatever. Like those are the coolest. I think it always happens like after the fact you leave and you're like, holy cow, I should have just, been more like that was crazy because I will not get that back again. It was like a certain moment, And excuse me, I wouldn't say it happens all the time. You know what I mean? Like I've definitely been to enough shows to where I leave and I was like, that was cool, but probably could have saved a little money, and maybe could have sat out on this one, and that's not like a slander towards anybody. It's just like a thing where it's just like, man, I just didn't it didn't really work with me, And I don't know. I think you just sort of know. Specifically the song selection. It's all about the songs, for me. If the songs are really hitting, the originals are hitting, or they're playing really good covers or whatever, like that's always just you think about that the day before. Maybe they play a song that you're like, damn, that song was catchy, and you find out it's a cover, and you can't find the cover that's anything like that live version that you heard that night. So you'll never get that back again, and like that sort of stuff is really neat.
Mhm. Can you talk to me about something like about life, not even about music? That's like a belief you had for most of your life that maybe now you kind of see differently.
Um, dude, man, I would say, and this is not to get way too out there, but something that I've started to realize in my 20s is like I'm only going to be 20 something once, you know what I mean? And I think as you get older, that starts to become more and more of a realization, It's like I've got so limited time here, and it's really funny. It's just like 10 years goes by like that, but it's also full of memories, And it's weird. It's just like um I think I'm learning now that you have to really space out your time wisely. And it doesn't mean that you should sit and think of everything you're going to do and then just, go 24/7, 365. You know what I mean? That's not what it's about. It's about balance and like um knowing what's too much and what's too little. And that's something I'm still trying to figure out. You know what I mean? I mean, I burn out very easily. You know what I mean? I'm a very like obsessive person that gets really obsessed with something and just does it way too much that I just burn out and you know, my wheels stop turning.
Mm.
Um, and I'd like to get to the point where I can do something very steady and keep it going um, for an extended period of time and not to mention the band because I know it was supposed to be a question that was loaded from off topic, but you know, I think something like a band teaches you like you gotta even if you don't like it, you gotta keep picking away at something, you know, something to get a step higher. A step higher is better than nothing, you know, and I think if you sit there and think of the end goal of what you want to, you know, where you want to be with something, it's going to drive you bonkers because you're going to try to get there as fast as you possibly can. Instead, it's better to just sort of enjoy what you're doing at that moment, finding small rewards in what you're doing at that moment and treating yourself to that. And like I'm not saying this like I'm a master at it because I'm not. Like I just I think I'm starting to realize that, you know, we're not like we're not just picking away at something and then one day we're just gonna like, you know, have it made and I mean there's always going to be work involved, you know what I mean? But it's so much easier to think about it as okay, what's our task today? What do we have to get done? Um, what's better now that we did get that done? You know what I mean? That's what it's about. And that sort of stuff helps you find out later in life, I would assume that you did a pretty good bit, you know? Oh, shit, look, I did all these little things every day and look at that. Look what it's become, you know? So I guess that's one thing I'm trying to figure out. Yeah, I think also um I think I'm a stubborn person. I would consider myself a stubborn person, you know? And you know, part of life is just putting that away, you know? And it sucks sometimes, you know, like putting something that you're so set on away and opening up to other ideas, but you know, you're not always right. You know what I mean? And that's something I figured out. It's like I am not always right. In fact, mostly I'm wrong. You know what I mean? And uh just working that mindset and just practicing that and realizing that, you know, just because you were born with your ways and you understand how you think you're supposed to run doesn't necessarily work for everybody, you know? And yeah, that's definitely another thing I just wanted to add in there. It's like you gotta be open.
I dig it for sure. Yeah, next I'd love for you to talk to me about 2026 and like what you all
Yeah.
have in store for everyone out there listening to be stoked about.
Yeah, dude. Well, we're about to take off for tour in a couple days. On Thursday, we're doing some Midwest stuff. Um, some shows of our own. Gonna link up with Kitchen Dwellers and do the mission in Denver.
Nice.
And then we're going to be going with the String Dusters in the Midwest for a little bit. Um, I think then yeah, we'll be back at the beginning of February, recording a new album all of February. Taking a break at the beginning of March to do Winter Wondergrass and Australia. We're gonna go to Australia for a little bit and do some shows there, and then more recording and touring into the summer festivals, Bonnaroo. Maybe I should just maybe stop there so I don't announce something that's not announced. I have a bad habit of doing that. Um, but yeah, bunch of neat stuff. I think I'm particularly excited about, and we really all are the album, man. We just recently signed with a record label, Dual Tone Records here in Nashville, and they're super stoked on a new album, and we've been working really hard to write new songs, and been doing some co-writes with people, and just getting our first like album out, you know. Um, and we got a lot of stuff on Spotify and Apple Music and stuff. Well, thank you. But we're just we don't feel the best about it, you know. We were younger and we didn't have management and nearly as much insight as we do now about how things work, and so we kind of worked with what we had, and uh it's exciting to like take a next step, you know.
Mm, totally. Well, yeah, man, starting to wrap up. Got just a couple more questions for you.
Yeah, dude.
All right, if given the chance, what do you think the future you would say to you now?
uh Probably just, you know, you shouldn't have been sweating that random thing that you were sweating about, you know what I mean? Like, it's irrelevant now. I feel like I do that already. Like, I'm thinking back on times where I was like freaking out because something just wasn't clicking, you know? And it's like, dude, you didn't care about that the day after, you know? Like, it was just a big deal within that hour, you know? And then I want to
Thousand
start
percent.
getting good at just realizing, like, if I could just realize that from the get-go and just let things work the way they want to work, then I wouldn't even have to bother with that, you know? And it sounds so simple when you lay it out like that, you know? But I mean, I'm sure you can understand how it is, you know? It's like every time you want something to go a certain way and it doesn't, you're like, ah. So
Just
that would be
have some
one thing.
faith, brother.
Yeah, have some faith, man. Absolutely.
And yeah, my last question would I'd love to hear what you might say is your advice about like living a life you can look back and feel proud of.
Um, you know, I would say for me, if I can make a comfortable living doing this, a comfortable living to support the people I love and do the things that I like to do, and also have times to do the things that I also want to do. Um, and if I can look at myself as an older adult and, you know that I haven't wronged anybody on purpose, you know, I've done everybody right as the best as I can, you know, then I'd say I'd feel pretty good about where I was leaving it, you know. Uh, Maybe some bucket list venues and stuff would be sick. Um, Red Rocks, the Gorge, Capitol Theater. Um, Maybe just touring around the world. I really want to do that. Just go everywhere, you know. That'd be really fun. And all that good stuff. I think I'd be happy. Yeah.
Sounds like you're on your way.
No, trying, man. Trying.
Let's go. Let's go.
Heck yeah.
Heck yeah. Well, Jury, man, this has been awesome. Appreciate you. And everyone out there listening, got links in the description. Grab those tickets to tour like we were chatting about. I'll catch you
Yeah.
guys in Denver with Kitchen Dwellers here at the Mission you were
Oh,
saying.
sick. You're gonna be there. Nice.
Yes,
Cool,
sir.
man.
So we'll have a link there. Everyone out there listening, grab your tickets and follow Mountain Grass Unit on socials, all that good stuff. And yeah, cheers to you, Jury.
Dude, Cam, thanks so much, man. I appreciate it.
This is Flowers on the Stage.